Hey guys, I'm not sure whether to bother to video this. It's only a little modification, but it might be of interest. This is the drawbar I made a very long time ago for collets, which I don't use all that often. And there we've got an expansion collar, which is turned taper inside to 10 degrees to suit the taper on the collet, and a special thread, I forget what it is, something weird like 26 TPI. Inside there it's bored through and through. I think it'll take about 1/4 or 3/8, so that's about the most I can push through the spindle. Anyway, the reason for wanting to make a change is, and I can't show the spindle yet until I've got further along and take the chuck off, but this expansion collar is not really big enough in terms of the projection from the spindle. When I'm using collets, I don't like being quite as close to the spindle, probably because the carriage gets a bit tighter again. But I'm going to make a change to that, make another piece. As usual, it's a case of what I can find. I really haven't got enough stock for large pieces of offcuts. Anyway, this piece in here, which I started work on, it's nominal 1 3/4. It could actually be 45mm. It's a rough old piece. I've barely got enough to chuck in here, and I've got 1 3/4, no, sorry, 1 7/8, which will take me right up close to the chuck. So at the moment I'm boring out. The clearance I've got there is for the I'm just checking my notes. I've got to make a 950 bore on that, and once I've got the bore through and through for that, turn this down to the diameter that will go into the spindle, which is going to be the same length as before, which is 580, comes back to about here, and then the rest of it, which will be the extension length, will be that'll be brought down to 1565. Then I've got to turn it round, face off, and get inside to put the 10-degree taper on. The compound actually is already set at 10. I set that up with the dial gauge on the collet to make sure I was spot on the 10 degrees. So I'm using it in that position at the moment, and I'm just boring this out, and I'm not going to cover much of that in the video. It's not very exciting. I'm going to make some more progress on that and come back later. I got about 30 thou to go. I've changed boring bars. This one has a bit more reach, and it's also although I put a slight radius on it, like many, it's a bit of a squeaker, but the actual finish in there is not too bad. And I have to take a spring cut on the way out because this is about a 2-inch extension on this bar. Yeah, it's very squeaky. Very squeaky. Just check that measurement. A couple more passes and we should be there. We'll check for the fit of the collet. I took it pretty easy on the last cut. I was actually dead on 950, but I took a light spring cut and There we go, it's about a thou and a bit, just clearance. These vary just very slightly, so that'll work for the bore. And so now I've got to turn down the outside, which will take quite a while on this chunk. So I'll return to that when I've got a bit of progress on it. I've got a way to go yet on this outside diameter. Look at this wretched chips. Taking a heavier cut for roughing, and I've got no chip breaker on it. It gets pretty stringy. This actually is just checking with the scriber. It's very hard material. I don't know what steel it is, but it's certainly pretty tough stuff, and I'm having to take a return cut. That's, I think, why the boring bar was squeaking too, the grade of steel. So I'm just taking it steady on here. I'll just take one cut to demo the wonderful chips that come off. Not. Finish isn't too bad, but you can tell by the colour of the these super long chips, you can tell that there's a lot more heat generated than on softer materials. What a mess. So a little way to go. Let's just check that and see where we are. I've got to get down to where are we? 1.565, which is not actually terribly critical, to be honest. The critical is the turn down of this end after this major diameter. Let's see what that comes out at. We're down to 6, nearly 625. So we've got a little way to go yet. Right, we're down to diameter here, close as matters. So here's the original piece. So we're okay on that. So this section here is going to be expanded to be all this lot. And we've got to take off on this section 580. I've made a mark and I've got some measuring up done. So that's going to be what goes into the spindle. And then when we've turned that down, we'll get this reversed and put the 10-degree taper in the mouth of it. Gradually getting down. This is definitely still extremely hard material. And I'm getting a reverse cut as well to finish the cut, which again to my mind is a bit typical of hard material, plus my tool is possibly not quite ideal. Let's just get some oil drip going. I'm keeping some oil on this all the time. I've only got about 40th hour to go. I'll just take a 10 here. Right, I'll check that and work out what we want for a final cut or two to get down to diameter. I just realised just now the oil drip was somewhere in the way. I've just moved it a bit. I'm just taking a really small cut here. We're getting almost down to the diameter, and this is relatively fairly critical. Let's get a bit of oil. See, on the lighter cut I don't need don't get the reverse cut, and that should get me pretty close now. Let's check that and see where we are. Machining shows a lot though on this material because of its nature. I think a more round nose tool would actually give a better finish, but we can give this a slight polish once we're there. Let's see where we are. We're at 2 thou short. Okay, we got that down. It's close to what we want. It should be an easy fit in the spindle as against too tight, but sufficiently close so that it's well centered. So there's the old piece. So that's okay on there, and then check there, and this distance, that's spot on. Well, again, close enough. That actually isn't super critical. So I think what we'll do is, this is a big chunk, we'll put the bandsaw through it and then re-chuck it, and I think I'll probably put it in the forge jaw, because one thing that's essential for this with collets, of course, is it runs nice and true. So I think we'll take the trouble of doing the forge jaw on that. Well, it didn't give me a lot to play with in the bandsaw, but actually the cut was pretty good. I put some packing in to cope with to try and keep it square, and what we've got left there is about what I'd measured, because I'm only gaining about 1 inch or slightly less according to when I get back to the decent bore. But we'll just turn that off, and I'll try it in the 3 jaw and see if it'll centre, but I rather doubt it'll be accurate enough, to be honest. I think I'll use the forge jaw anyway, because I can't get a dial gauge on there very easily. Well, we're nearly faced back to the bore, then we can put our taper on, and that should be it, apart from breaking that edge there. Just another 2 or 3 cuts. It's got a slight edge there now. We can lose that with the when we put the taper on. So I'll put a boring bar in and get that done. Right, we're getting part of the way in. I'm going to go in about a 1/2 inch, then we'll try the collet, see if it goes in as much as is needed. It's inevitably a bit slow. I've already bored you enough with that. Let's finish it off. Almost there. I reckon to give a taper deep enough to take about 2/3 of the collet taper. or thereabouts. The original collar was taking about 2/3, I suppose, but I don't mind a little more. So I'll take another cut or two here and see if we'll try it out. Finished there with a little spring cut. See where we've got to. Of course, cutting on a taper, you make pretty quick progress, and that looks close to what we might want. We have to go a bit more. Let's just reset 0 on the cross slide. Let's try this out. My hand's going to be in the way. There we are. I like that. That's just about right. It's a little bit further in than the other one actually, which is probably not a bad thing. So we'll take that out. There's probably some chips in the side there, and just break this edge, and then I think we're done. We'll put it together and show you what it looks like in position. I'm just doing a retake here. I've got the I think the camera had moved a bit just to make sure you can see everything. Anyway, that's the drawbar in the spindle. It's the old and the new, so we just got a bit more extension on it now. Can't see what I'm doing. Alright, so the standard setup with the old collar, I'm not going to do it up fully. Alright, so I put the excuse me, so I just put the wheel on the back to draw that up. You see this is pretty close to the headstock. I'll take this one off and put the new one on. A bit harder to get that threaded up. Previous video shot was as bad as I think. You probably wouldn't have seen much. Let's put the wheel on the back, spin it up, take up some tension, and there we are. So that's it. End of project. Quite a bit of work, although it was just to make one chunk. I haven't put the dial gauge on there yet. I'll probably check that and see. Let's just check that. I'm not holding it very steady. So we're pretty much on the money, which is quite pleasing. So there you are. That's the end of that little bit of fun and games, and we'll see what comes next. Thanks for watching.